Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another day with Tales with Miss Fennell. As you can see, I am in a new location today. I am reading from inside my bed because what other place more comfortable to read than sitting inside or in your bed? And today is Crazy Sock Day, and I wanted to show everybody my crazy socks in honor of Wonder Woman because she is my favorite superhero. So it's only right you wear your crazy socks while you're sitting in the bed and reading a book. So today's book that we are going to read is a book called White Socks Only. And what better book to read because it has to do with socks. But this book is not only about socks. This book is also about a little girl that loves to hear stories read by her grandma. And when I was little, I loved for my grandmother to tell me stories too. So I have a connection, or as we do at our school, I agree with this friend in this book because I love to hear stories that were told by my grandma. And we're going to listen to this story today. And I wanted to put a little context behind it because back in February, we celebrated Black History Month. And this book does have to do with a lot of what was going on during Black history. This book is a book that has to do with segregation. This little girl is listening to this story about her grandmother who goes into town and sees a sign that says white socks only. And when we think about the word segregation, we know that that means that we are separated or apart. And it's not like we are right now having to be stuck inside the house and apart from our friends and our family. It's about when white people and black people had to be separated because of the color of their skin. So then we think about the people that we thank for these things that don't happen anymore, like Martin Luther King Jr., or Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth. And we thank those people because if it wasn't for people like them being those civil rights activists that they were, then I wouldn't be able to sit here right now and read books to you online, or I wouldn't even be able to be a teacher and teach all of the different diverse faces that I teach every day and something that I love to do. And this book is awesome because it teaches us that it shouldn't be about the color of our skin for us to be able to be together. And I think that you're going to enjoy this book. And something that we were learning about in class in a cool anchor chart, and I don't have my anchor chart, so I have to show you on my computer. We were talking about point of view. And point of view lets us know who is telling the story. So when I think about who is telling the story, it can be in two point of views. In first grade, we've been learning about first person point of view, and we've been learning about third person point of view. When a story is told in first person, we know that a character that is inside of the story is telling the story. So we'll see magic words like I, we, me, and us. If a story is told in third person, then we know that the narrator or somebody that is outside of the story is telling the story. And we'll see magic words like maybe the person's name, and we'll see words like he and she. So today, while you're listening to the story, I want you to listen for those magic words to see what point of view might this story be in today. Is it in first person or is it in second person? Miss Fennell doesn't know, so let's read to find out. White Socks Only by Evelyn Coleman. Grandma, can I walk into town by myself? I asked one hot summer day. I knew what she was going to say. She was going to tell a story. Not just any story, but my favorite story. I watched her turn toward her spit can, ping, and snuff juice hit the bottom. Sounding like a chime. She rocked 1 or 2 times, closed her eyes, and then she looked up at me. You know you ain't big enough to walk into town by yourself alone, girl. I sure don't know why you asking me that. You ain't big enough till you gon' do something good out there. I smiled and plopped down on the step. She was about to begin her story. Grandma laughed. You know, when I was a little girl like yourself, I sneaked into town once. Yep, all by myself. Wasn't planning on doing no good. Had just been waiting for a scorching hot day. I had 2 eggs hid in my pockets. Not to eat, mind you, but to see if what folks said was true. I slipped on my finest Sunday dress and my shiny black patent leather shoes and my clean white socks. I pulled my plaits back with a bow. Why, I thought I looked pretty grown up. Lord, you should have seen me strutting and dust flying behind me. I had to hold my arm steady on account of them eggs, though. Now that I think about it, it must have been a mighty funny sight. I sneaked up on I sneaked on up that road, singing, "Jump back, Sally, Sally, Sally," walking up the alley, and nobody but myself. And child, was it hot on that kind of day? A firecracker might light up by itself. So Grandma's telling a story about her walking in the town with some eggs in her pocket. I wonder what Grandma is going to do with these eggs that she has in her pocket. Let's keep reading to find out. I was feeling pretty fine until I spotted that old chicken man sitting on his porch with his mouth like a smile. I just looked down at the dirt. My mama had told me about the chicken man. Still did things he knowed all the way from Africa. Stuff that his grandmother done taught him. Mama also had told me he could heal the sick by laying on the hands. And that one time he made a blind man see just by looking deep into his eyes. And folks said he turned people into chickens if he didn't feel what they were doing was right. That's why he was called the Chicken Man. I was kind of scared he might think I wasn't doing right, so I started walking faster. I still had my arms out steady, though, so I wouldn't break the eggs. I see magic words, and I hear the magic words, I a lot. I wonder what person this is being told in. What do you think, friends? Anyway, when I got into town, I didn't see many folk that I knew. I wandered around with my mouth gapped open, looking at the white women in their fancy hats. That's when I saw Mama's friend, Miss Nancy, turning the corner. I was going to sure enough be in trouble if she saw me. She told Mama everything. So I took off running toward the first big tree I saw and hid behind it. I stayed there for a minute, panting until I saw Miss Nancy walk out of sight. Then I tiptoed out. But in my rush, I bust one of the eggs and it was sliding down my dress and leg. Oh no. She busted one of her eggs, so that means that she only has one left. I figured I better do what I come to do and get back home. I was standing in front of that big old building where there was a statue of a soldier sitting up on a horse. I read what it said on the building. Cole County, Quartzsite, Mississippi. I carefully pulled my egg out of my pocket. Right there, I cracked it one time against the horse's leg. The eggs inside dropped to the hot cement. I knelt down with my face close. I watched that egg like an old man watched checkers before making a move. For a minute, I thought it wasn't going to do nothing. Then right around the edges, I saw it. One little bit was turning white. Next, the white creeped wider and the yellow began to bubble. By golly, I was frying an egg on that cement just like folks said. I jumped up and started dancing and prancing. It was time to go home now. I done it. It was all over, and it was true. It could get so hot, you could fry an egg on the sidewalk. That was not what I was thinking she was going to do, friends. I thought she was going to throw the eggs at the statue, but she was trying to fry an egg on the cement. started walking and wiping sweat from my face, with the eggy part of my dress sticking to me every step I took. My mouth was dry as dirt, and I was mighty thirsty. That's when I spotted a water fountain. It had a little step stool so children could climb up to drink. But on the fountain was a sign that read, "Whites only." Well, I knew what that meant, so I sat down on the grass and took my shiny black patent leather shoes off. Now I only had on my clean white socks. I stepped up on that stool with those white socks, hugging my feet. So I noticed that the little girl thinks that in order for her to drink out of this fountain, she had to take her shoes off and have on white socks. Is that the real meaning of what that sign means, friends? I don't know. Let's keep reading. I was slurping up that water mighty fast when this big white man with his black and white bandana around his neck grabbed me off the stool and pushed me to the ground. That white man pointed to the sign and yelled at me, "Can't you read, girl? Why I'm gonna whoop you till you can't sit down." His big fingers fumbled and tugged at his belt. I began to cry as the crowd of white people gathered around. They were all staring at me. Seeing all the people made me real scared, and I cried louder. I couldn't understand what the white man was so mad about. I was wearing my white socks. Oh, friends, we know that is not the way to treat people. So I wonder what's going to happen next. See that how you notice? I want you, friends, I'm going to give you a little hint. Remember this man and this red bandana around his neck, because something's going to happen. I want you to think about it. An old black woman from my church stepped through the crowd. She wasn't wearing anything white, but she untied her shoes and took them off. She stepped up on that fountain, bent way down, and took a drink. I knew the man was going to yell at her, and he did. "I'm going to have to whoop you too, ain't I?" he shouted. But then other black folks started coming over, removing their shoes and drinking from the fountain. They had on clean-looking green socks and yellow socks and red socks and blue socks. Of course, the big man with the bandana kept right on yelling. His face got red as fire. He was snorting through his nose like a bull does when he's gonna charge. So I can tell, or I can infer, that man's face, he is mad, because it says in the text that he's red and he's yelling and he's going to charge like a bull. Other white folk came up and started yelling at us too. By that time, the big man had whipped out his belt from his pants. He was hitting me and everybody else who was close. None of the black people moved. They just covered their faces. I sat there sobbing, holding my arms over my head. All of a sudden, everybody got quiet, like they was gonna pray in church. Even the white people. I peeked out through my arms. The black people and the white people were moving aside. The chicken man was coming. He was slowly tapping his way towards me. Uh-oh. We know that at the beginning, the girl was scared of the chicken man, so I can infer that she's probably even more scared now because he's coming. I wonder what he's coming to do. What do you think? When he got close, he stopped. He looked at me from the top of my head down to my white socks. Then he bent over and pulled off his black shoes. His face squeezing up, he had on the cleanest white socks you ever seen. He stepped up on that stool. He didn't have to bend over far because he was so short. Or he didn't have to bend over very far because he was so short. Sorry. He drank a long time from that fountain. I held my breath. So did everyone else. The chicken man lifted his head. He turned around smiling and slowly stepped down off the stool. Without a word, he pointed a crooked finger at the white man. The white man's belt was down by his side now, clasped tightly in his fists. He was as still as a statue. Wow, look at his face. I can tell that he is in shock. But I wonder if what they said at the beginning about this chicken man was true. Can he really turn people into chickens? Or can he really make people think about what they're doing? I bet that's what he's thinking right now. Oh, let's make an inference. What do we see in the picture? Because we know that the picture, before we even read the words, can tell us what's happening in the story. I can see that the chicken man has his hand on a little girl's shoulder, and she's closer to him now, and she's even looking at him. So what does that mean that the girl's feelings are now with the chicken man? I'm thinking maybe she's starting to like the chicken man or trust the chicken man a little bit more, because his actions of standing up for her might have changed her mind. Let's read to find out. The old chicken man helped me up. He took out a white handkerchief and wiped my face. There now, child. It's time for you to go on home. You did all right. He handed me a chicken feather out of his brim of his hat and hobbled away. All the black people surrounded me. They were all crying and hugging me. Then they took me home. When they told Mama what had happened, she just broke out laughing. She said, "Well, I guess you can't go into town by yourself now because you old enough to do some good." Look at that bandana around that chicken's neck. Oh my goodness. Nobody ever again saw that big white man who had whipped us. None of us dared to ask about the big chicken flapping around the courtside near the water fountain either. And from then on, the whites only sign was gone from that water fountain forever. The end. I wonder if the chicken man turned that man into a chicken. But who knows? Well, friends, thank you so much for joining me again today to read our story, White Socks Only. Tune in tomorrow when tomorrow is dressed in Christmas things day. I wonder what Miss Fennell's going to be wearing tomorrow. Well, that's it, friends. See you later.